afternoon, everyone. It's been a wonderful day, and it was really inspiring to see so many great questions to Alexei. Just to see what's going on, by show of hands, who here is a Rust developer? Amazing. And again, by show of hands, who has contributed to any of our code bases? Reth, Foundry, Alloy, anything like that? Okay, fewer people. Who runs a node or has run a node? Okay, more people. Great. Excellent. So we're going to have a high-context conversation here. I'm going to talk about Reth 1.0. Reth is a new node that we started building 2 years ago. I'm going to say, how did we get here, and where are we going from here? My name is Georgios. I'm the CTO and the GP at Paradigm. I'm also the founder of Ithaka, which is a project aimed at accelerating crypto. So I want to start from what is a node? And from a very abstract sense, a node is the soul of every network. Transactions come in, it re-executes things, it produces a state commitment, it streams the thing out, and this thing goes on. And this is what gives us the so-called decentralized cloud, decentralized web, the crypto that we all came and love. Now, today, nodes are, or have been, slow, they're rigid, you cannot really modify them. They're kind of scary. Like when you see somebody who's running a node, you think they must be some crazy systems engineers developer. And they're actually expensive. It's really hard to run a node, as we saw a small amount of the room only running a node. And it doesn't need to be like that. Nodes must be, not can be, not should be. They must be fast so that they run the chain quickly. They must be extensible so I can go and override it and add additional functionality to it. They must be welcoming, very important. A node must not be scary. It must be a place where you go and you're not afraid to modify, to go unblock yourself. And nodes must also be cheap. They must be able to run on cheap hardware. They must require you to get a cheap cloud box if you need, or even in your laptop. We've seen people running Reth nodes in their MacBooks, and that's really inspiring. I'm really proud of it. And so we built Reth to fix this problem. We want the nodes to be fast, so we built a fast node. And Reth is a contributor-friendly implementation of Ethereum. You can see here I have the GitHub repository. It's a repository we feel very proud of, and we're spending all of our efforts on every day. Reth was built to be fast, extensible, contributor-friendly, and cheap. And that is for many reasons. And over the last 2 years, we've been shipping and shipping and shipping. And we've shipped a lot of software, and I'm excited to talk to you about a lot of this stuff today. So we started the Reth project in 2022. It was a few months into the development of Foundry, and I went to our colleague Oliver, and I'm like, okay, my man, we fixed Foundry, we fixed smart contract testing, what's next? And I told him, why don't we build a node? And he said, you're crazy. Well, a few months later, we came up with a node. We announced it in 2022, and later in 2023, we released it in the first alpha version. Doing that in 2022 was insane. I didn't know anything about nodes, but we went and studied, and we learned a lot. And today, we're seeing the benefits of learning how all of that stuff works. In 2024, Reth hit its 1.0 milestone. It was something I worked really hard on. We worked with other core dev teams, used automated client testing tools. We did everything we could to cover every single edge case. Downtime was not acceptable. Some slow transaction taking us down was not acceptable. The P2P layer taking time to sync, taking a long time to find peers was just not acceptable. The bar is very high. And we also worked with the Sigma Prime team, our good Rust friends on the consensus layer, who are also auditors. And what we did with them is we told them, okay, you guys really like the execution layer. Well, we gave you a Rust execution layer, now go crazy on it. And they found a few good things, but what was really remarkable is that the original assessment was scoped to say this long, and they ended up spending way more time because they liked the project. And that's how we want people to be working with us. We want the Reth code base to be something that people are excited to work on, and not something they find scary and kind of weird to be in. In 2024, Reth is being adopted in Ethereum mainnet. The data source for this is the Ethernet node crawler. Depending on what source you see, you will see different things, so bear with me. But basically, Reth is a node that appeared in 2022 and is already starting to be live and existing on Ethereum mainnet. People believe in Reth to stake their assets with it. RPC providers use Reth because they find it exciting to provide better performance to their customers. And we did all of that because we want to make crypto better, and it seems that we must make crypto go faster, and that goes from all the way from the infrastructure to the developer experience. So I keep talking about contributors. This chart is kind of remarkable because this has been a chart from a few months ago, from August, and actually I tried to pull it up today, but I didn't have time to update the screenshot, but we had even more contributors and like even more PRs. We have 500 PRs and over 50 contributors every month, which is a really exciting metric to be hitting for an open source project with no grants, no subsidies, it's just cool code. And this is not a simple project, this is something complex, but somehow people keep coming to it because they like it, because there's something about like being a part of a community. And we really care about this community, about our open source developers. We have 400 contributors so far, 400 people contributing to a node. The thesis that we had when we started developing Reth is not that we wanted to build a fast node to go and take over the stake or to have 33% or whatever. It was kind of an education project, honestly. It was, what if we grew the pie of open source developers that get how Ethereum works? And what if we also tapped on a group of people that care about high performance? And the result was the Reth project. So to us, open source means a few things. A, there's an age-old tale about, from Linux, I believe, where in the eyes of 1,000 people, every bug is shallow. We get consistently bug reports for our code, and we love it. We take the bugs, we fix them, and we go to the next. And that's the nature of building such a critical project. We're very excited that we have teams like the Ethereum Foundation security team, which goes and sends us emails to our security email where we need to fix things. And that's the beauty of open source. Reth enables third-party builders. The open source community that we have built continuously builds things on Reth. And Reth, as Alexis said, is not just a node, it's an SDK. And it's an SDK for building high-performance nodes and so much more, like execution extensions. The other very exciting thing about the open source is that the community gives the project life. I used to be one of the main committers in the Foundry project, and nowadays the project just lives on its own. It just goes on and on and on and on, and it's kind of like remarkable, again, the beauty of open source. And finally, it has this very counterintuitive thing that if you really figure out how to solve it, the problem starts moving faster because of the third parties contributing, not slower. You don't spend all your time trying to find like great talent to come into your code base. They come to the code base because they find it cool. And we hire the best of them, like we have with the team that we have so far. Many people ask us, okay, Georgios, what you guys have done is really nice. Like, we also want to replicate this in our code base. How do we go about this? You know, do I hire a community manager? Do I hire a DevRel? What do I do? And I think there's like a lot of things that you can do. I think that most important things are on this board, and it starts with a polished issue tracker. The moment that you go to the issue tracker, you must be able to go and filter by label, good first issue, and like go pick an issue. What happens in our code bases when we open a good first issue is it gets picked up 10 minutes later. People are proud to be like putting Reth on their resumes, and they're racing for open source tickets. That's really exciting. But how did we get there? We got there by having great documentation. In the Rust code bases that we have a lint that doesn't allow for any publicly exposed interface to be undocumented. The PR just fails if you don't do that. And that sounds like a small thing, but it really makes the developer think about it twice. And what I really love about the Rust programming language is that it doesn't let you be lazy, and parts of the things that we're trying to do is prevent the open source devs from being lazy when they come to our projects. Thirdly, great tests. Tests matter. We built the Foundry project again because we thought that tests matter more than people think. And here again, we think that tests matter a lot. It means that I can look at the PR like on the plane, or like when I'm like on a bicycle or anywhere, honestly, and I can know that the PR is going to be good for the PR that the marginal open source contributor brings. And that is what allows us to bring on more and more people without really having to like deal with you know, taking hours for like PR reviews. That's really powerful. Fourth, the maintainers matter. If the maintainer is not on a chat room that like you can reach, that's a problem. If the maintainer is an asshole, that's a problem. Because if the maintainer replies to your PR and they're like, no, that PR is garbage, well, you're probably not going to go back to the repository because you think that PR was an asshole. So good vibes, they matter. It matters that when you go to the repo and you say, hey, can I take this? The person that is maintaining says, thank you for the pull request, or thank you for the issue. What about doing it this way? instead of shutting it down, requested changes, 35 comments on the PR, and then go to the next roast. It's kind of uninspiring and demoralizing. And I think the problem with elite developers is that they think that the newbies are not worth talking to. And I think that's a cultural problem that must be fixed. And if you want an open source repository, you need that. Finally, the chat room. The chat room matters. The chat room is where the vibes happen. The chat room is where the communication happens. The chat room is where the design happens. If the chat room has non-tech spam, the chat room is not good. If there's people trolling the chat room and they make the experience uncomfortable, that's not a good chat room. God forbid there are ads in the chat room. Somebody posts a job ad or an event ad or anything like that. No bueno. It's terrible to have a bad chat room. You start ignoring it, you archive it, you don't talk about it. Our chat rooms, they have thousands and thousands of people, and somehow we managed to keep it together. And in the beginning, it required me or others on the team to go and do like manual support for a lot of people, and we were always very careful about when somebody enters the chat room, they have a good experience. The developer in an open source project as a maintainer is your customer, and you gotta treat them with excellence, because for every bad developer, you lose 10. For every dissatisfied developer, you lose 10 future contributors. And that matters. Again, this is a chat about Reth, but like a lot about this is about how to build successful open source projects and communities and how to ship increasingly complex projects with like small, lean, cracked teams that can do a lot of good work without having to hire 50 or 100 people and like go and burn insane amounts of money. We learned a lot. Firstly, Ethereum is just really hard. You might think that it's easy. Building a client, it was 100 times harder than I thought. Like when I told Oliver, hey Oliver, we're building a node, I thought it would have been like a 6-month project. It took 2 years. And I think building the next phase is going to take a lot longer, and that's why we're here for the long run. Big shout out to the other client teams that have been doing this for many years, and I think we're 2 years in the journey, and it's really humbling to see how hard this stuff is. Secondly, testing is extremely hard, especially when you need to interoperate with nodes in other languages, which may have different architectures. Maybe you're like built with a TriDB, maybe another DB uses the Aragon style sync. It's really interesting, like this cross-client interop. But again, it's like really what makes the problem hard and exciting to work on. And again, the best engineers want to be working on meaty, hard problems, and this is one of them. So when we see hard, we see a challenge and we go for it. Thirdly, benchmarking is extremely hard. I think benchmarking is one of the underrated things. Nobody in crypto profiles. People just like go and do cowboy modifications without thinking. The one thing that you need to do is a flame graph. A flame graph is a bar chart that you see when you run a profile or when you run a test, and it has big red boxes showing where time is spent. So I don't really know how to optimize, but I know if I see a big red box, I try to make it a smaller red box. And Samply is an excellent tool that everybody that cares about performance should be using. You run Samply record your command, and it outputs a flame graph. And not only does it output a flame graph, it also outputs a Firefox share link that you can send to your teammate to continue debugging with you. It's really powerful, and you need that. And fourthly, contributor-friendliness is hard. I think in other languages, building successful open source projects is particularly hard because you don't really have like a bunch of like access to like easy developer tooling to make it easy to review a PR. But we did it, and we're really proud of it. All right, we got here. Where are we going? And I have 6 minutes, and I hope it's going to be enough. So 3 things for the future of Reth: stability, performance, extensibility. We think of feedback loops as the most important thing. You talk to your customers, that's a feedback loop. We talk to the core devs, that's a feedback loop for our stability. If we can pass Ethereum mainnet, that's very powerful because it means that people should trust that our software is good. Similarly, what is our performance feedback loop? We built OP Reth for that, which is an OP stack implementation of the Reth project, and we laid out the GigaGas roadmap earlier this year on, all right, where do we need to go? Let's put a target on it, not transactions per second, gas, a real unit of account for compute, and go and like optimize that loop. And thirdly, extensibility. We have the Reth SDK. OP Reth is one implementation of a node using the Reth SDK. The Reth SDK is a framework for building high performance and extensible nodes, and they're stable because you know that they share code with the most important like system like in crypto, which is Ethereum. And execution extensions, you heard Alexi talk about, so I'm not going to talk more about it. So how did we get stability? We got it with cross-client tests and cross-client benchmarks. Big shout out to the Kurtosis project and the PandaOps team for the Ethereum and the Optimism package. They let us bring up chains with like as many clients that we need, as many nodes as we need, like mainnet OP stack, like fuzzers, like any kind of like third-party tooling, like in 2 commands. These are wonderful tools. Anybody in node infra should be using them. Performance is, again, I'm like citing the documentation on how to run Reth for OP stack chains and how to look at in our roadmap or our perspective on how to build high-performance nodes. Thirdly, extensibility. The Reth SDK, we provide big examples showing a lot of things. So on the right, you will see that the execs examples for the backfill, for the execs, we have backfill, we have an oracle, we have the remote execs, we have a rollup example, we have a lot of stuff. Similarly, on the Reth SDK side, we have all sorts of things. We can show you like in 30 lines how to modify your EVM and add a new precompile. We can show you how to do P2P for BSC, for Polygon. Even though Reth was not built for them, you can do such crazy modifications without forking the node, and you can access any chain in the ecosystem. So 2022, we started with the Reth L1 node. We were able to sync something by the end of the year. By the end of 2023, we had a Reth node that can sync Ethereum L1 and OP stack. 2024 and on, Reth is the SDK for building good nodes, and we're giving it away with Apache MIT license because we think the industry needs it. Our vision is to accelerate crypto alongside the open source community. That's why we started Ithaca, which is a new project that is basically taking our existing team, and we're empowered to start running experiments where we're going to start by solving the UX problem. We think that the thing that's missing right now from crypto is the UX, and really to fix the front ends, we had to fix the back ends first. Your front end is only as good as your back end, and it took 4 years, but we think that finally the stack is ready, and we're ready to finally build great experiences. And here in the right, you will see a tweet from the Ithaca account where we demonstrated what we think next generation UX can be, where we showcase EIP 7702 and P256, which are 2 proposals, like one is already on L2s, and other is coming to Ethereum mainnet in a few months, where the idea there is that what if we had endgame wallet UX? What if like in any device, in any chain, I can batch, no RPCs, no bridges, no gas, like no key management, just works? And it's an interesting question. Can crypto UX be better than Web 2? And my claim on why people haven't been able to do that is because the pieces of the stack were not quite lined up so far. And you know, if you see the user and the developer, anytime the user tries to do something, they go through Connect Wallet, then they go through MetaMask, then they go through Fiat onboarding, then they go through like 1,000 layers, and something always quite feels off. And I think there's a time to fix it, and the time is now. And we're going to do that because we have built the industry's most used open source tools. We built Alloy, Revum, Foundry, Reth, Cryo. We just released Solar, a new Solidity compiler, Ox, WAGMI, VM. We know Ethereum, and we're going to fix it. So our North Star is to solve Ethereum's hardest problems. We've been doing it for years. We think the time is now to go and build the best open source software for the industry and for crypto to become something that we feel proud about. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the great talk, Georgios. Let's turn our attention to questions. Are there any current disadvantages of running Reth compared to other clients?
Totally. There is a trade-off that you make when you're running a Reth archive node, which is that you give up historical if-get proof when you run it. And right now, I believe that sometimes on the RPC, performance on the WebSocket subscription is not always state-of-the-art. So sometimes other clients can have better performance than us on the RPC, and we're working on it.
What novelty does Reth bring other than the language it's written in?
Oh, tons. Firstly, Reth, again, is an SDK, right? So the Rust language is kind of like independent here. The fact that Reth is an SDK means that I can literally go and build other node implementations using it. what it gives you is a runtime, RPC, P2P, DB, and you can choose how to put them together, and would just give you a nice builder pattern that you can use to do everything. So people have done things with Reth, for example. I think the Taiko team has done things with our stack. The Skoll team has done things with our stack. So it's not necessarily really the Rust programming language. It's that we built it to be, by default, performant, and like we give all the nice abstractions for people to go and build whatever the developers need, again, without forking, by being a library. So it's really critical to land this point. Reth is not just an L1 node. Like there's not much that we need to do to grow adoption on L1. We care for the stability, but like what we care about is developer tools, first and foremost, to empower devs to build things. And Reth, in every way, from the SDK standpoint, is a dev tool, and dev tools don't need to be scary.
So I can run a local ether scan with Erigon called Otterscan. When would Reth be friendly to local privacy-friendly block explorers? That's
a great question. So on Anvil, which is the testnet node that we built, which superseded Ganesh, we have implemented the Otterscan API, and you can run Otterscan using Anvil. I'm not sure what happened with the. I'm not sure what happened if we have that implemented in Reth, but like maybe we could add it.
What was your thinking in starting the Reth project rather than building on Akula? I love Reth, but I feel bad for the Akula team.
Totally. We were looking for a very easy to contribute project, and we had a hard time like contributing to that project.
Okay. Do you have any thoughts on the Beam chain?
Not many.
Not many. Okay, then when Reth light node?
That's a great question. I don't know. Should we do one? Okay, we'll take it back to the team.
Why do you keep advertising that Reth is the most performant one when clearly Nethermind is the better one?
We love the Nethermind team, and they've been kicking our ass lately, so big shout out to the Nethermind team.
Any plans on making Consensus Client under Paradigm portfolio? Paradigm should dominate ETH ecosystem. Just relaying this, by the way, not my opinion.
Totally. These are good questions. Firstly, I see Mehdi on the crowd. We love the Lighthouse team, so no plans for anything like that. Somebody asked us around the Beam chain, should we do something about that? Oh, like it's a good opportunity. I don't know, man. I really don't know. Like we maintain so much code, it's kind of going. Even consensus is hard. Like all of the stuff so far is not like the hardest, but like consensus is actually hard.
Any technical decisions on Reth that you regret?
I need to think more about it.
Okay. How do you pronounce Ithaca?
It's not Ithaca Cornell. It's Ithaca, Greece, which is an island that Odysseus from the Odyssey went back home, which is the home of Odysseus when he came back from Troy.
Okay. Is there any combination planned for Reth and Lighthouse from the perspective of EL and CL?
Oh, fuck yeah. We've been calling it Reth House, but like I don't know that it's like planned.
Okay. What specifically about Reth allows it to scale to higher gas throughput, and do you specifically measure gas in the engine?
We do use gas as our current way to measure things. We think that gas is a good enough way to address, to cover our benchmarking needs. I think it's a good question, like whether like that's a sufficient metric. For example, the gas does not express whether like well enough, like whether it's storage or compute operations. And sorry, what was the first part of the question? We lost
Reth
it.
and Lighthouse?
No.
No?
Okay, let's go on. Yeah.
All right, how'd you look at a PR on a bicycle?
Without hands, like you.
Okay. When will Reth support non-op stack EVMs, and why was op stack prioritized versus other EVMs?
Yeah, so I had worked on the Optimism code base for many years, so I knew how it worked. OP stack then was designed very nicely in the sense that I can just touch the execution layer component without anything like above it, which is like the derivation function or how you do fault proofs or anything else. So it had just a nice separation where we only need to do like a few modifications to the code base, and that felt easier. And when non-OP stack chains, I don't think we have plans for us to do it, but we've been refactoring the code base to have no feature flags so that it's a pure SDK as much as possible, such that people can go and do it themselves. And we're already seeing that, for example, with the Scroll team, where the Scroll team PR'd a state commitment generalization pull request. And that state commitment generalization pull request allows them to unblock themselves and go and import Reth as an SDK and like make it work with the Merkle tree that they have, which is slightly different than the one that we have. So nothing that we will do, but like we're making the SDK available for people to do it.
All right, we're out of time for questions. Thank you again,